Sit right here, David. Just take my purse out of there.
Hey ha ya, hey ha ya, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ya. Hey ha ya, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo. Fort Beck Community College, Uki Ebino, yo, me too, Gashi, Dagush, Kashka, Yogi Piano, yo, Wata Pebi, Hagi Ktabi, Ihachi, ya, Bino, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ha ya, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey yo. Fort Beck Community College, Ugi Ebino, yo, me too, Gashi, Dagush, Kashka, Yogi Piano, yo, Wata Pebi, Hagi Ktabi, Ihachi, ya, Bino, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ha ya, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey yo, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ha ya, hey yo. Fort Beck Community College, Uki Ebino, yo, me too, Gashi, Dagush, Kashka, Yogi Piano, yo, Wata Pebi, Hagi Ktabi, Ihachi, ya, Bino, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ya, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey ha ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey hey yo. Fort Beck Community College, Uki Ebino, yo, me too, Gashi, Dagush, Kashka, Yogi Piano, yo, Wata Pebi, Hagi Ktabi, Ihachi, ya, Bino, hey yo.
Mitakuipi Yushkewan Chiankampi Chantewashtea Yuhanape Chuzapto. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our guest speaker series here at Fort Peck Community College. It is May 3rd, 2021, and I have the pleasure to introduce Miss Jonny BearCub Stiffarm. So I want to thank her for joining us today. I reached out to her a week or two ago, asked her if she would join us, and she accepted our invitation. So we thank you very much, Jonny, for joining us. Just very briefly, I'll give the viewers, whoever our students are that are joining us on the Zoom call, those of us that are joining us here on the Facebook live stream. Jonny BearCub Stiffarm is a enrolled member of the Fort Peck Assiniboine Sioux tribes. She's a lawyer with a lot of knowledge and experience in tribal, local, federal governance, rules, regulations. I could go on and on. She's been an effective leader in different areas such as the corporate world, business, and community cultures. I believe right now she's working for Native Energy. The past, she's worked for the college in a few different areas, but I think most notably what jumps out is the Buffalo Program Administrator for the World Wildlife Fund. Could go on and on. Former Chief Judge, education as a master's degree from Florida Atlantic University, Juris Doctorate from the University of Minnesota School of Law. So really a distinguished member of our community. And I asked her specifically if she would share her ideas, a cultural perspective on the cultural perspective on grief. And so I guess I'll turn it over to you, Jonny. Again, thank you for joining us, and whatever you'd like to share with us, we would appreciate that.
One of the things I would like to share is, this last year has been really rough on so many families. We've lost so many of our people to COVID and the after effects of COVID. It's been a little over a month since I lost my son, my oldest son. And one of the things that I've thought about, because now I have lost two sons, is how do we handle grief within our tribal community? We have so many suicides, so many of these young people, and so many of our families suffer from the trauma of grief. And I was thinking how lucky I was to have been born into a very traditional family, to have learned the rituals and ceremonies that we do. And I thought about how can our young people and other young mothers and fathers who may lose a child, how can they adapt those ceremonies to work for them? Because we as tribal people, we would not be here today if we did not adapt and make use of everything we had around us for our survival. And grief is one of the things that we must survive if we are to maintain a healthy tribe. And so I wanted to talk about how our family does it. Every family has their rituals and ceremonies. Every clan has rituals and ceremonies. Every tribe has ritual and ceremony. There are certain ways that certain folks do certain things. When my son died, we took to the hospital a big mason jar that had sweetgrass in it that had been boiled. So we had sweetgrass water. And we took a wash rag with us when they moved him into comfort care. And so when my son passed away, and he died early in the morning, about 1:40, we all cried. All the family was there that could be there from our close family. And then we took the women, they took the wash rag and we dipped it in the sweetgrass water and we bathed him. We washed him, got his body all washed. And then we took a smudge, and you can smudge in a variety of ways. Some people use sage. They take sage sticks and that, and is one way that there. Sometimes they'll use cedar, and there's different types of cedar. I hope you can see my cedar. So there's this type of cedar here that they have, and then there's a flat cedar. Some people use cedar. For my family, we use the sweetgrass, and everybody usually has a sweetgrass braid that they can use. So we smudged my son with his whole body with the sweetgrass. We smudged all the family members that were there, and we prayed. We prayed with him. And then we sat there and we talked about all the good memories, all the stories that we had shared with him before he passed. And we sat with him until the sun rose. As soon as the sun began to come up, then we told them that they could come and they could take him. So they came to the hospital. Almost every hospital that you go to, if you talk to them, they will turn off their smoke alarms and they will bring you towels and that so you could close off cracks in the doors and that, and you open the window and they'll let you smudge and stuff. So that was really, really helpful for us. So we let him go that morning, and they came and they took him away. In our culture, in our clan, we have what we call a 4-day feast, because we believe when the time that they die, that their spirit wanders the earth for 4 days. They travel all over and visit everybody that they want to, their best friends, people that they were in a service with. They go to some of their favorite places they like to go, some of their favorite places they like to eat. They travel all over the world and they see that. And then on the fourth day, we have what we call the 4-day feast. And what we do is we ask someone to come and help us pray and bless the food. And when they come, they set up a chair there, and we take a cloth and we offer a cloth is one of the things that we offer. And then we have tobacco, and you can use any type of tobacco that you have. This kind, this kind, this kind, this kind. But you offer tobacco, and they'll come and they'll put the cloth over the empty chair, and they'll take the tobacco and lay it there as part of the offering. And then you need to have the chair, and that's there for the spirit to come and sit on. And then you have to have your 4 pots. You have to have your 4 main traditional foods that are there. You have to have your choke cherries, your June berries, your dry meat and turnip soup, and your mint tea. Those are the 4 things you have. And then you try to have all of the foods that they liked. For instance, my boy loved his strawberries and strawberry shortcake. So we did a strawberry shortcake with whipped cream and fresh strawberries, and the frozen strawberries that we thawed out for the sweetness. So we had that, and we had a lot of his other favorite things that he loved to eat. He loved his salami and cheese sandwiches. So we made a lot of those sandwiches for him. And they come and they bless the food, and then they pass it out and that. And then when we're all done eating, after everyone has had a chance to eat and visit, and once again, you're not to cry, you're supposed to tell good stories, good memories of them. You talk about all the fun things that they did, and that the hunting stories, all the different things that they were involved in. And then when everyone's done, because during that time when they get ready to pass the food, they make him a spirit plate, and they put that on that chair for him. And then they have a prayer, and they call his spirit, and they tell him that he needs to leave and start his journey on the other side. He needs to leave the family. And if he can look around at the family, he can see that they're happy, that they're not too sad, that they'll be okay. So he doesn't need to stay here, and he doesn't need to worry. And the family tries really hard at that time period to be happy and to think of good things, because you don't want him to suffer, and you don't want his spirit to linger here. You want him to begin his journey home. And so they get ready to sing this song, and they sing this goodbye song. And at that time, the spirit is to leave this world and begins to cross over and find its way on that path up to the stars, so that he can go home, walk on the Milky Way back to the other side. And it's at this time when they sing that song that it's really, really hard to think good thoughts, because you're really sad. You don't want to let them go, but you know they have to go. And so that's what we do. We sing that song. And then when it's over and everybody's taking leftover food, taking their watecha, then a family member will take the cloth, they'll take the tobacco, and they'll take it together, and they'll take his spirit plate, and they'll take it out in the country. Like, for instance, I live out in the country, so we have a couple of trees in our field that we use to make our offerings. And so they'll take the cloth and they'll tie it around the tree, and they'll take the tobacco and sprinkle it around the foot of the tree and put his plate there. And that's the offering that he took with him to the other side. And then we'll leave it there. And then we all begin to get ready for the funeral. And one of the interesting things from the time the community knows that someone has passed away, the family should not cook until it comes time to get ready for the feast. And because they're getting ready for the feast, and that community members bring you food, they'll bring food to your home to feed you. And that's the reason why we have everybody brings food to the family, because it's during those 4 days that the family must begin to prepare to get ready for this 4-day feast. They're gathering their traditional foods if they don't have them. They're ordering their meat, they're ordering the different things for this 4-day feast because they need to feed the people. And that's the reason why people bring food to their homes, so that they don't have to worry about cooking for themselves because they're busy getting ready for the ceremony. We went to the funeral home and we took all his clothes and stuff over there. And then we asked if we could see the body, and they said yes. And my son was a veteran. He had served in the Marine Corps. And so one of the things we did with him is I had his younger brother take this red ochre, and the red ochre, you take it and you rub it on your hand. We rubbed it on his hands, the palms. We rubbed it on the palms of his hands till his hands were red. And we rubbed it on the soles of his feet till his feet was red. And that was so that when he gets to the other side, that the society that he needed to join would know that he was a warrior, that he had served in the military. That's one of the things that our family does, is we paint them. My other son, Jeremy, he was Winkta. And so when he got ready to go, we took the red ochre and we painted his earlobes. And that was a signature so that when he got over there, they would know what society he belonged to and what his role was in that society. So after we paint him and we got him ready, then we go through the next ceremony, which was the actual funeral. So when they bring him to the community hall, we had my nephews there from North Dakota and my sister, and my sister from Siston, my Hunka sister. So they smudged his casket when they brought him in, opened it up and they smudged him. She sang a song for him, and then we got him ready. And at that time, our family members took the night before or a day or two before, we took our hair, pulled it back, and we cut our hair. And then we took our hair and we wrapped it in red cloth. And so when we opened his casket and they started to get everything set up and started to bring the flowers in, we went up to the casket and we talked to him. And we took our hair that was wrapped up and we put it in the casket with him so that he could take that with him and that he would know that we're in mourning for him, but also to know that our hair would grow back again and over time we would heal. And so we gave him our hair. I cut my hair. My daughter cut her hair. All of his children, they cut their hair and put it in there with their father. And then other people came and put little gifts in there. One of his sisters came and gave him a little bottle of whiskey and set it up there just nice. And we told her, hey, be careful. Don't put it there. One of our relatives will come up here and they'll be hugging him, leaning over him and giving him a kiss, and they'll snatch those bottles up and they'll go and they'll drink them up and they'll bring them back and put empty ones in there for him. So, we need to laugh. So we had lots of humor, lots of sadness, but also lots of humor. Because one of the things our culture teaches us is to remember the good times and have the humor. And so we put our hair in there with him. And during the night, in the evening, when you have a little bit of food and you pass food out, we put a spirit plate out there for him underneath his casket so that would go with him also. And then what happens after the funeral is all over with and he's been buried in that, then we have a year to prepare for the memorial. And during this year following his passing, we began to gather gifts, and we began to remember all the people who helped us, all the people who shared in our sadness. And we gather the gifts. And so that keeps the family busy. We're busy making things, we're busy going out shopping for things, and it keeps him fresh in our memory. And we think, geez, what would he like? What did he say his friend really liked? So that we remember that. And so we keep that memory alive and fresh within us, and we keep it in a mode of kind of a happiness. So he's still there with us and trying to comfort us. And we go through that whole series. So when I was thinking about grief, and I was thinking about all that our people have gone through. And I thought, what about all the families I know of that were never raised the way I was, that doesn't know how to do all these things? And I thought of young people. They can't do the whole day, 4-day feast or anything like that. But if their friend passes away, maybe they loved McDonald's. Maybe they love to eat McDonald's. So go to McDonald's and get those 2 burgers, or get that 1 burger and take it and go down by the river and talk to your friend. Say, hey, I remember you. I want to remember you and all the fun things we had, and break the burger in half and offer, lay it at the foot of a tree and offer that. Take a cigarette, just a single cigarette, or a pinch of tobacco. Break your cigarette in half, light it and smoke this half, and the part you broke off, sprinkle it on the ground there and offer your friend a smoke, and tell your friend that you really miss them, but you're glad that they're in a better place, and you hope that you can eventually get there too. So in a way, you adapt the ceremony and the ritual to be able to do what you need it to do. Maybe you don't want to cut all your hair off. Take a little piece here, just a couple of strands, and clip it and take it and make an offering. Tell your friend, you're gone, my friend, but I do this for you. I want you to know I remember you, but remember the good times and the fun times. I think the challenges that we have today is that so many people say, that's not the right way. This isn't the way you should do that. I know at my son's funeral, I had one of our distant relatives ask me, how come you're burying those eagle feathers? It's really wrong to bury eagle feathers. And I looked at them and I said, well, I respect your tradition, and that may be the way you were raised. But the way I was raised from my grandfathers and them, when we die, we send with them what we think they need in the other world. We have a burning of their favorite clothing, their favorite things that they really liked. I said, and other things we send with them in their casket. I said, when my son passed away, the night after we had our 4-day feast, his brother, his sister, all of his pallbearer friends that came from far away, I said, they started a fire and they burnt all of the clothing and that we had gotten out for him, that was his favorite things, and some of his favorite CDs, other things we sent there, and they burnt them. They sat around, they told stories, and they burned his things for a couple hours at night. Those are the things that he wants to take up to the other side with him. You don't send old clothes, you don't send papers, you don't burn up pictures, you don't do that. What you do is you send their favorite things, their favorite pieces of clothing, their favorite stuff that they liked. Because I know when I die, I sure don't want them burning a bunch of my old clothes, because I don't want to take those to heaven with me. I want to take certain things. And so I told this young person, I said, no, I said, the way we believe and the way I was raised in my family is that my son is in his casket and he's holding an eagle feather and he's holding a braid of sweetgrass, because we want to make sure that he has sweetgrass to smudge himself and use that feather, whether it's a small feather like this or whether it's an eagle wing fan, to smudge himself as he travels on that journey to go home to the other side. I said, that's what we want him to have with him. Not only that, I said, but he's taking all these other things that people believe that he wanted to take with him. We put one of his dolls in there, one of his toys from when he was a little boy. When my children were all little, we bought them all Cabbage Patch dolls, and we bought them those cats, those Cabbage Patch animals. And we still had his doll, his Cabbage Patch cat. And so we put that in his casket with him. All his Marine buddies who came from Texas and from Colorado and all the other places, they all brought things that they put in that casket with him for him to take to the other side, because that was their way of honoring him. And that was their memories of the things that they did together. So when you have a friend who has passed away, if you have something that both of you really liked, and you happen to go to that funeral, take it and put it in that casket. Put it down there beside them. If you don't want no one to see it, just wiggle its way in there. And when everything was over with and we got ready to let my boy go, we opened the foot part of the casket, and we had his little backpack that was packed full of all different kinds of things from all his different friends and his children, letters, pictures, little bottles of liquor. I'm quite sure there were some marijuana joints in there too. But whatever they thought he liked, they put in there in that backpack. And we laid that at the foot of his casket, and we covered it and sent that with him too. I think all of these rituals and ceremonies that we go through make the unbearable easier to carry. It helps us to be able to say goodbye. It helps us to be able to cherish that memory and to be able to take control and in charge of our grief. There are times when there'll be bouts of really unexpected grief will just hit you and just wipe you out. And you can ride that. You need to go through that because that's a part of the healing process. But then later you can think of all the things that you did and the ceremony you went through. Or maybe, it hurts so bad sometimes. And all the ceremony, everything's done. But I'll think about my sons and I'll cook their favorite food. And I'll make a spirit plate for each of them. And I'll take it out and I'll set it out there for them. And I'll feed my sons and tell them, I really miss you. I know you're doing okay. And back here, even though we cry, we're okay too. We're going to be okay. And one day we'll see you again. And then, we pray. And so there's all kinds of little things. I remember a good friend of mine, when we were young and we used to party, a good friend of mine was crying at one of our parties. We said, "Why are you so sad?" And they said, "Well, I'm sad because my friend and my cousin passed away on a different reservation." And I said, they said, and they really like to party and drink just like we are doing now. So we said, well, open up a can of beer for them and pour it out, offer it to them, tell them to come join us and be happy. Be glad for them because they're safe and they're healthy and they're doing good. And they probably don't even want to even think about drinking a beer, but that's a way for you to make your offering and your honoring of your memory of your cousin. So they did that and they felt better. And they said, well, how did you guys learn how to do that? And we said, well, there are things we learn in our culture. There are mechanisms, there's rituals, and there's ceremonies that we go through in our culture that help us to heal, that help us to be strong in a time of great grief. It helps us not to lose ourselves, to not lose ourselves in alcohol, to not lose ourselves in drugs, to not lose ourselves in grief so much that we cannot find our way out. These are our lifelines, our rituals, our ceremonies, our prayers, our memories. For as long as someone says your name, you will never, ever truly be gone. And so I think it's important to remember that. So when I look at grief, and I am in grief, and it really hurts sometimes, but I think to myself, we have to remember the memories, but we also have to live for today, because our tribes need to be healthy. Our tribes need to be strong, and we need to be able to help the younger people who are coming behind us and the children. And if we lose ourselves in grief, then we cannot help them. And the only way that tribes are going to be able to heal and help themselves is they must do it themselves. We must use whatever mechanisms we have and tools at our disposal to be able to do that, to help ourselves. So are there any questions?
Students, those of you that are on the Zoom call, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. For those of you that are joining us on Facebook, social media, just put them in the comments section. I'll see if I can pull any questions up. I don't see anything right now, but I think when I'm listening to you, Tui, you raised some really good points about being able to process our grief in contemporary times, utilizing these mechanisms, because when you go into our communities here in Fort Peck, you see grief everywhere. People aren't processing grief, and sometimes it's unhealthy the way that they're doing it. And so by talking about it, sharing it, I think we're giving our community members and our students that are joining us on the call an eye-opener on what they could possibly do. And there's some community resources. We try to utilize platforms like this for mental health, for awareness. And I think processing grief is a huge part of it. And part of our other podcast series, we always talk about how our culture is one of our biggest strengths to address mental health issues. And sometimes grief, it can kind of get in our way. And so I really appreciate it. And just so people are aware, I've been aware of Jonny for several years here. I remember listening to her present at an Elders Institute when I was working at the college, helping to facilitate. So I knew she had some cultural knowledge, but I was completely unaware of her situation recently of the passing of her son. So I totally did not expect her to say yes upon hearing that news, but I'm glad that she did. And it took a lot of courage to share that information, because it's very personal, very, very, very personal. And a lot of our cultural people that have this type of knowledge, they might not want to come out on a social platform like this and share. But I think part of that leadership is recognizing, when I'm listening to her talk, is how it's important to share this that way, that the tribes, that we can continue to process grief and move forward for our kids. And so that's one of the biggest takeaways that I look at it anyways, in our conversations and other platforms with our podcasting. We always tell people, don't tell anybody that we're just sharing our experiences. So by sharing that, I think you're really interjecting some really positive healing for us. Looks like Johnny McClammy has a question. I really appreciate how you said each family has their own traditions, however they were taught. Right? Yeah.
One of the things I want to talk about is the role of a puppy. One of the things when I grew up is that a dog is a very sacred animal to our people, and you usually take a young, healthy puppy that just barely has their eye teeth, and you sacrifice that puppy when you're getting a child named, because you want that name to be taken to the other side. So the camp on the other side of that star road knows what the name is of this person is going to be. And the next time that you kill a puppy is when a person dies. And what you do is you take that puppy, and just as that sun breaks above the horizon in the morning, you kill that puppy and you singe it and butcher it up, and then you cook it, and you have it there for that 4-day feast, because what you want that puppy to do is that puppy is very close and still remembers that road when it came back down here to be born. So it knows its way back quickly, and it goes ahead of that spirit, and it goes home and it goes the other side. It tells them, hey, this person is coming. Like my son's name was Tashunge Hunga, his horse's chief. So we did that when he got his name. So that puppy went to the other side and told them, there's a newborn baby, a little boy. He's born to Hungawa Shtewia, and his father, his mother is Hungawa Shtewia. That's my name. And his name, the little boy, is named after his maternal grandpa. His name is Tashunge Hunga. So that puppy went over there and he told the other camp. So that when my boy dies, we need to do that again. And we send that puppy back so that puppy can go to the other spirit side. He can tell them, get ready. You need to get the feast ready. Tashunge Hunga is coming home. He's coming, and he has left and he's begun his journey back. So prepare the feast and get everything ready. So that as my son journeys back and he goes across that star road to the other side, the other camp already knows. And my mother and my grandma and all his uncles and all his relatives on the other side, they're getting ready now. They're getting a feast prepared for him. My grandpa and them are getting their drum out. They're getting ready to sing to welcome him home. So when he comes over that hill and starts to walk into that camp, they can welcome him home. So that's how we use that puppy when we do that puppy meet for special ceremony. Those are the things we do, and those are the reasons why we had that sacred food. A lot of people don't do that anymore because they don't know how, and they don't know how it's done and how it's going through the process of how you prepare it, how you take care of it, and how you eat it. But that's one of the things that is an integral part of our culture that we've kind of lost a little bit now.
We got one question in the chat there. Tune says, when you are going through the process, do you invite the community, or is it something that only friends and family members are personally invited?
I think it really depends upon the individual families. Like for instance, when my son passed away, I just started working with a young non-Indian lady who comes from the East, and she doesn't know very much about our cultures. And so I told her, I said, if you're going to work with me, you have to understand me. I said, take these bags. I'm giving you 10 cakes. You need to bake these 10 cakes and frost them for me. I'll give you all the stuff for them, but you need to do this for me, and you need to bring them back to me on such and such a day at such and such a time. And we're going to have ceremony for my son, and I want you to be here to listen and watch. And after everything's over with, we'll talk about it, and you can understand how we go through this ritual and ceremony to do this. So she did. And I think it was really good for her to go through that with us and to see that and to ask me the questions that she wanted to ask, because that gives her a greater and better understanding of how to work with me for the next year, because I'll be preparing for our memorial and doing other things. And so, if I ask her to do something, and if she's going to travel and I'm looking for a certain thing, and I say, hey, I want you to take this money and look for this for me. And if you happen to see it wherever you're going, can you pick it up for me and bring it back? She'll understand why I'm asking her for those types of things. So I think it depends upon the individual families, how they feel about community. And for us here at Fort Peck, when you say community, there's so many of us who are interrelated to one another. There's so many of us who have adopted different families into our own families to replace those we may have lost, that when you talk about community, it's practically everybody. But in certain instances, your non-Indian friends may feel like they need to have an invitation. My son had a couple of non-Indian buddies that were Marines, and we told them we wanted them to participate in all of our ceremonies, and we would explain our ceremonies to them because they were his brothers, and he would have wanted them. And he specifically stated in his will that he wanted all his Marine buddies that came home to be his pallbearers, if they were able to come, that they needed to participate in all the ceremonies, from the burning of his clothing to his 4-day feast, to all the things that we did. And he wanted them there to see and be there. And he wanted us to explain to them, because that was who he was. That was the type of family he was raised in. And he wanted them to understand, because when he was in the Marines, he always talked about, you know, when he was a grass dancer, when he used to dance and do all this and that, you know, so those were his brothers. And he wanted them to learn. So we involved them. We had them participate in everything we did. And I think that really helped them also with their grief.
Oh, Pinama. Any other questions, students that are on the call here with us? Because if not, I guess I would turn it back over to Tui. Jonny, if you have any other parting comments, or but just so the viewers, those that are listening, know that we will be having follow-up weekly visits, discussions with Ms. BearCub here over the next 4 weeks. Each week will be a different topic, so been very gracious with their time. Is there any other parting comments for this session, Tui, John?
Well, I would just say that one of the things I think it is important that our community begins to do is that we need to talk about our grief. We need to begin to incorporate more ceremony and more ritual into our processes. We need to understand why we do different things. We need to not just to do it because our parents and our grandparents did it. We need to do it with an understanding of why we do it. What is it done for, and how does it help us? How does it help us in our healing process? How does it help strengthen our spirits and our culture? What are the things that you may be comfortable with, both in your Christian religion and those of them who practice their tribal religion? Every funeral I've gone to in the last couple of years since I moved back home from the city has been a little bit different. All of the different ceremonies I've gone to have just been a little bit different than the way it was when I was raised. But that doesn't mean they're wrong. We should not be so judgmental to say, that's not how it was when I was young. That's not how my grandpa or uncle did it. It doesn't really matter exactly how the ceremony is done. It is the power of the feeling behind it. That's where the ceremonies and that get the power. They get it from the feeling of the heart and the feeling of the spirit. As long as it fits the needs of the people who desperately need it at that point in time. And like I've said, the only reason why you're here and I'm here is only the strongest and the fittest survived all of the disease, all of the war, all of the starvation, everything that they did to us that tried to wipe us out and almost did wipe us out. Remember, there was only about 350,000 American Indians left. We were like the buffalo. We almost disappeared to nothing, almost wiped us out. But we survived and we adapted. And that's the important thing. We never lost the meaning of our spirits. We never lost the underlying meaning and concepts that made our culture. But we did adapt and incorporated other modern things into our ceremonies. Did my great, 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 great grandmother have this kind of cloth? No, they used something else. But because we are in the modern day, we may not have what they had. And so we adapt. But it's the spirit of the gift that we're giving to the spirits that make the important thing. And all the cultures are different. Many of our families now are multicultural, we're multi-tribal. And so you may adopt some of the ceremonies from your father's tribe, you may adopt some of the ceremonies from your mother's tribe, and do a combination of that. Does that mean it's wrong? No. As long as it meets the needs of the family, and long as it meets the needs of your friends, that's the most important thing. And adaptability is healthy for our tribes. And it's what makes our tribe strong, and it's what will carry us into the future.
Mm.
That's it.
Thank you again for sharing. Pinamaya, relatives joining us out on Facebook World and in the Zoom webinar here. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Petiwashte yoha dokstake.
Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey ha yo hey ya hey yo
So we leave now?
hey ha ya hey ya ya hey ya hey ha yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya 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 hey hi ho hey yo Fort Beck Community College Uki Ebino yo yo Itugachi Dagush Kashka Yogi Eno yo yo Wata Baby Aki Tabi Ihachi ya Bino hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ha yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ha hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ha yo Fort Beck Community College Ugi Ebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pebi hagik tabi ihachi ya bino hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya yo hey ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ya hey ha ya hey hey yo Fort Beck Community College Ugi Ebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pebi hagik tabi ihachi ya bino hey yo hey ha ya hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey hey yo Fort Beck Community College Ugi Ebino yo me too gashi dagush kashka yogi piano yo wata pebi hagik tabi ihachi ya bino hey yo